the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week.
Hi everyone, this is Sulab Jen. Welcome to the business story of the week.
Fantastic. And that is the man himself, Suab Jen. And he is going to be our guest today. My name is Joshua, of course. I am your host. Every week, every episode, we kick off with a riveting question. For today's episode, the riveting question is: how can algorithms make better decisions about what you buy than you can? Can algorithms make those decisions for us? What can we buy better, right? But we can dive deeper into this, and Sulab is going to be helping us with that. Sulab Jain is the Chief Analytics Officer at Impact Analytics, leading teams to develop advanced AI solutions for retail and enterprise decision making. With over 12 years of experience spanning management, consulting, and startups, Sulab has a background in solving complex business challenges using data science. He holds degrees from IIT Bombay and IIM Ahmedabad. Sorry. And today he's going to be joining us. Sulab, how are you doing? Thank you for joining us.
I'm doing very well, Josh. Thanks for having me over. Appreciate the invite.
I truly appreciate it as well for you agreeing to come on the show. I love analytics. I mean, I'm not particularly an expert at it. I love talking about it. I love the realm behind it. Of course, if you're into sports, sports. It's analytics is very
Absolutely.
very deep into sports right now. It's also quite divided. Where some people, sports people, don't like analytics in sports. They feel like they take away from the actual sport. I disagree. Of course, I think it gives us a different perspective into the
Right.
sports that we play. World sports, of course, but Sulab, before we get deep into it, what was the young Sulab Jain like? Was he always into numbers? Was he always into data, so to speak? What would the young Sulab say to the Sulab of today?
Sure. I think the young Sulab has been, I want to say, very logic and rationale driven,
Okay.
and hence adopting numbers as a way of life was easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I was good at math growing up, but then making sense of numbers, why, let's say, a metric is too high or a number is too high, too low, that's where I think my curiosity kicked in as well, right? So I did like the logic and the rationale that numbers bring in. And then over my professional years, I think a good sense of business curiosity sort of overlapped with that. And I am where I am today.
Fantastic. I mean, like business curiosity, data, and having numbers to get putting that all together. I think it's pretty cool. And now that you find yourself in, you find yourself running startups like what's on rent, right? And now you're now the leading the innovations at Impact Analytics. Talk to me about how those two things compare, because again, you worked on startups and now you are at Impact Analytics. How do those two ventures compare when it comes to data?
Absolutely. So I think what's on Rand was more consumer facing. So I was building something where my end customers were consumers or individuals themselves. That's where you do generate a lot of data around, hey, I post this ad on Facebook, how many people viewed it, how many came to my website, and how many ended up really placing an order, let's say, right? So there's that origin of data which was still happening in that business. And funny enough, impact analytics is helping businesses like those. Any brand, any retailer who's selling to consumers inevitably have a lot of data. And that's where what we're doing at Impact Analytics now is helping retailers make better decisions with that data, right? So I think they sort of are different sides of the same coin. And then obviously, I think the realm of starting up and joining Impact Analytics when it was about the same size, quite early days, I think a lot of attributes of how you build a business and how you grow a team and how you mentor a team are fairly same as well.
And it's very interesting. First of all, just to give a little context to our audience there, what's on rent? What were they renting exactly?
So it was a combination of things. So we had long-term rental items like your furniture and appliances. Could be a refrigerator, a washing machine, a microwave, a bed, dining table. And then we had the other spectrum, which were like very short-term rentals. So things which you want for a party, for example, right? A set of good speakers or board poker set or set of board games or just party decoration items, right? So we were essentially trying to capture that young professional audience who did not have a lot of money to spend, let's say, on owning some of these assets, but
Yes,
then they also had a life that they aspired to
I
enjoy.
see, of
And
course.
hence, we were capturing both sides of that same consumer.
That is very, very cool. And today you are part of Impact Analytics. You are driving the innovations there. Talk to us about what you do at Impact Analytics.
Sure. So I'm the chief analytics officer with the company. So I oversee a lot of our teams who are building part of the algorithms that sit underneath our software. As Impact Analytics, we make decision systems for retailers and brands. So these could be small, let's say, web-based tools which help retailers decide how to price a t-shirt or when to promote an item or how many units of item to hold in their location A versus location B versus location C. So what we are doing is trying to build in a lot of science into an area which was largely governed by feeling or experience because hey, I've been doing this and I'm running the business. So that's what we are trying to do. Now within that there are a lot of different types of algorithms which are used, right from how do you forecast and how do you optimize and how do you recommend, let's say, a certain decision. So a lot of the teams that I lead are essentially focused on making those algorithms and then giving a recommendation which is easy for a business user to adopt and use.
Fantastic. And this is all what analytics is about. Putting all
Correct.
together, all those numbers, putting all that, like making sense of all this, your behavior, of your data.
Mhm.
When it comes to that, though, if analytics was a machine, what do you think is the driving engine of it? Which part of it is the one that moves it forward most of all? Basically, what is the most important data when it comes to analytics?
I think there's no single answer to that question. It
Interesting.
sort of goes back to what decision you are trying to make.
Hmm.
And it's the same as saying my computer is a machine and my car is a machine and my cycle is a machine. What's driving each of those three is very different, right? There is electricity and human power and
Yes.
gas. So it goes down to what my machine is about and hence what is the most important piece. At least in analytics, I think whatever you want to make as a decision, it's always going to be what input data you have and how good or how consistent that data is, right?
And go ahead. And that's what you're doing with consumer data today is trying to come up with the drives consumer behavior, so to speak. What are exactly the better, like we opened with a question of how to make better decisions when buying. Do you think algorithms can make better decisions for us when it comes to consumption, when it comes to buying? It seems like we're giving a lot of agency to algorithms today, or is there still something is there still some sort of power that we have left?
Sure. Now, I think there's a lot of power that humans still have. And the reason I say that is the algorithm is not forcing you to make a transaction, right? Anything that you see is always going to be a suggestion or a recommendation saying, hey, for someone like me, if you got a hair trimmer, maybe you want, a beard oil as well or whatever, right? So it's always saying you as a consumer bought item. And now if I have a long history to say everyone who bought item, what was the most common second item that they bought? All that the machine is doing is profiling you and then putting you in the same
Interesting.
similar group of people, hoping and assuming you would fall in the same group as well, right? But then Whether I need a trimmer or not is my choice. Maybe I don't need it today, maybe I'll need it 6 months later, right? And I will probably reinforce the machine to think that everyone who buys a razor is probably also then getting a trimmer.
Mhm.
But all said and done, I think it's still, as of today, it's still humans who are making the transaction. Machines are probably just giving you recommendations. If you ask me what's probably, my take on what an alternate reality could be 10 years later, I think we may move to a world where every morning you or I wake up, we have a box of items delivered at our doorstep, and we open the box, and let's say there are 10 different items, and I'll keep two, and I'll say, okay, just, do not process the other eight. So it will
Oh,
reduce my friction to go on an app and place an order, and it'll say, okay, here's what we think you may need, keep what you want, you only get charged for that, and just return everything else. And
very
I think that is
interesting.
possible.
That is very interesting. And of course, it's in everybody's best interest, especially corporations, of course, right?
Hmm.
Like wanting to
Yes,
just like, hey, this is it. This is a product I think you need, and if you don't like it, send it back to us. And if it's feasible and if it's doable, I think corporations are going to jump into that. Of course, consumers in our side is like, who wouldn't want to receive gifts in the morning, right? Like, wow, I've got these new products, and of
exactly.
course, the temptation to keep all of that is going to be very, very strong. But at the
That's
same
what
time,
would make it work for the
exactly,
corporations, I believe. Yes.
exactly, and
Because you may theoretically just need two, but because you have eight others,
mm,
you were on fence on, let's say, two others, and you choose to keep those two and return just
very,
six instead of, going and buying eight.
and I don't see any reason why it won't happen. Right, especially the corporation driven world where a product or consumption driven world where we just want to keep consuming, right, and we just want to have all
Exactly.
these products. Sometimes we may or may not need them, but the fact of just wanting to own them or just getting them without the least amount of effort possible, and of course algorithm plays a whole lot of a huge part in that, because it tells us like maybe you might need this without us even knowing that we
Exactly.
actually.
And then there are very simple examples. So as you know, a lot of these algorithms, let's say, are still in early stages, and
Mm,
obviously there are humans who are trying to make these, and they'll only get better over time. Which also means as humans, you continue to add, let's say, more and more conditions to check. And then I'll give you a simple example,
please.
right? If I have purchased, let's say, a ketchup on Amazon, ideally, they know exactly when I bought it. They probably also know when the ketchup bottle will expire. And if I do not refill or restock in that period, they can just send it to me when it expires and actually put a note to say, hey, guess what? Your ketchup has expired. Just take this.
That's it. That's
It could
fascinating.
move to that, right?
That's very data. That very data right there. I mean, of course, we're thinking like, man, what are we thinking? It's probably going to give me products that I don't even need. But that data alone of expiration data, we don't even know sometimes that it's going to expire,
Exactly.
and we
Exactly.
don't even know sometimes that, oh, I'm out of soy sauce. I'm out of mayonnaise. We don't know. And
You don't know.
having data and algorithm tell that for us, I think really moves us into a far more convenient future. Of course, I
Exactly.
love that.
At least my wife won't be angry. I forgot parts of the grocery list, for example, right? Because
Exactly. You
I
can
just
blame
have,
it on the algorithm.
there you go.
That's
Maybe
it.
someone else.
Of course, on Impact Analytics website, Sulab, you emphasize driving customer values with practical AI algorithm, and you kind of showed us a glimpse of this with the example that we just talked about. How does this inspire your approach? How do you exactly do that? Blending innovation with
Mhm.
real world impact, and how has it shaped your work at Impact Analytics?
Absolutely. So I think the general issues with any of the algorithms or AI or any models is that they can only be as intelligent as, let's say, the historical data is or the
Yes.
available data is, right? So I think a good part of what me and my team essentially is trying to focus on is also to say, okay, given what we have, how can I create an output which is still meaningful, right? And I'll give you a small example, right? let's say if I'm working with a client who's selling t-shirts, for example, right now, there could be a time in history when they offered 45% discount and their sales just shot up way too high. Now, an algorithm would probably think there's something about 45%. Whenever you offer that, it'll just shoot up a discount, or the sales, and it'll probably just come in and start giving, go 45%, go 45%, go 45%, right? Unless it sees it happen a few more times where the units are not as much, and then it realizes, okay, maybe there's something else. But
Yes.
as a user who's making that business decision, they probably put certain product on 45% discount only when they've tried everything else and it was never selling, and they literally just gave up, and they were like, okay, you know what, I'm ready to forego my profit and just sell it at whatever price I bought, right? And hence they just took it down to a very, very high discount. Model would not know that, AI would not know that as yet, and it would just see, hey, there was a change of price and it led to a lot of sale happening, and it'll just keep repeating that, right? And hence it is AI, but it's not practical, because then the moment I have a new shirt, the AI will say, okay, just go to 45. And hence you need to build maybe a certain set of rules, which could be as simple as, hey, up until the first 5 weeks of a new product, you do not promote it more than 15%. And then the next 5 weeks of the product, you maybe can go up to 30 and so on, right?
Interesting.
So you layer some of those, you could argue is not AI, it is just a set of rule.
Uh,
That's what's then helping to at least make it a little more believable, more actionable, and hence being adopted by a lot of the users as well.
and of course, really, really big on your website, it says there next generation decision making. And what you just told us about right now is a great example of that because it allows you to give yourself not necessarily always AI driven, but also practicality and how we can apply those things in the real world. And again, the website is impactanalytics. So,
Hmm.
Lab, where else can we find you? Where else can we learn more?
I am on LinkedIn. I'm fairly responsive. So if people reach out, I do like to interact and find new thoughts and learn from people. So definitely you can easily find me on LinkedIn. But yeah, that's usually where I would be spending some of my time as well.
And that is, of course, where we got connected. And that's, of course, how we got onto this show. I invite our audience and listeners out there, go send a connect request to Sulab, of course. And, of course, go visit his website, impactanalytics.co. As any of this resonated with you, certainly very, very, it resonated with me. So interesting stuff. Very stuff that, you probably don't only get a perspective from data data experts like Sulab. And of course, Sulab, everything you've shared here today has been like mind blowing to me. And I feel like we'll get there. I mean, it's a data future, and data is king. And of course, you know, you and the people at Impact Analytics are the ones who are making sense of that data for us. So, Lab, anything else you'd like to leave behind the audience? What would it be?
No, I think this was great sharing some of my thoughts. More than happy to take some of this discussion offline with any of your audience as well. This is what I do for a living, so I've spent a lot of time. I may be biased to think that data can do a lot of it, solve a lot of our problems. I'm also usually interested to hear, hey, what's the other side of it, right? Why it cannot happen. And I think as a group, we should also always be conscious of that, which is companies will tell stories of what AI can do, but then also have your own sort of thought process behind it to say, is it really possible? Is it possible today? Is it possible 3 years later?
Wow, I love that. Is it possible today? Is it possible in the future? But of course, anything is possible, I think, especially when
Absolutely.
it comes to data. And so, Lab, thank you so much for making sense of that future for us and giving us a little bit more interest in all of that. Thank you for coming on to the show.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you again
To
for
all
having me.
our audience and listeners out there, I hope you guys enjoyed Sulab. I hope you enjoyed his perspective. Thank you for watching the episode. We will see you on the next. Bye bye.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.